Let's look at the modern world. And let's look at you. I'm going to make some guesses based on the fact that you are watching this video. I'm going to guess that 1. You live in the developed world. B. You are at least moderately sociable. And 3. You are not suffering from debilitating illnesses or chronic depression. Thus, you meet all the conditions that would allow you to literally live heaven on earth. Because in the world that we live now, there is such abundance, such wealth, that any of us could make the right decisions to live a life that is happy, that is healthy, that is meaningful. But we don't. Most of us live quite miserable lives. We feel lost, without a purpose, and sicker and sicker. We need only look at a few things to see that the world is actually getting progressively worse. More unhealthy, more unhappy, more devoid of meaning, and we're becoming almost antisocial. In the sky. Global GDP has tripled since 1950. Basically, we are 3 times as wealthy as we were 70 years ago. But are we 3 times happier? Fortunately not. Happiness has remained flat despite all this wealth since 1975. So all of the added stuff, all of the added riches don't make us happy. Research actually shows that having materialistic goals makes us more unhappy, not happier. World Health Organization data shows that there are more overweight people in the world than there are normal weight people. Basically, fat is becoming the new normal. And obesity is just one of many chronic illnesses that are killing us, such as cancer, heart disease, autoimmune conditions, neurological disorders. All of these things are getting worse and worse. More people are suffering from them, and they are suffering earlier in life. It's so bad that the US, which is arguably the wealthiest country in the world, has had actually declining life expectancy in the past years. So people in the most developed country in the world are living less.
Oh, it's breaking.
And all of this happens in an environment where we almost always react to what happens around us. We react to media, we react to ads, we react to notifications, we react to the new Trump shenanigans, we react to an infinite amount of stimuli. And all of this reacting, all of this stimulation means we are losing the ability to act for ourselves. Our attention span is now lower than a goldfish. We spend every second looking at the latest news and have become so distracted that we cannot focus on reading a whole page in a book anymore.
You must keep on.
We are now more connected than ever. We all exchange much more information with much more people, much more frequently. And yet, we spend more time alone than our parents or grandparents. Having so many connections actually makes us less able to have friends. So we become isolated. We become alone and lonely, and then to dispel our loneliness, we take comfort in the very superficial online connections that creates the problem in the first place. So this makes us more isolated and more alone. But why? Why would we be self-destructive? Because we don't know who we are. We think our brains are magical computers. We think that we have some sort of superpowers, that our brains could do almost anything if we only learned the secret how to access all of that raw data. It's like in that movie Lucy, where she gets superpowers because she can access 90% of her brain instead of the 10% of us mere mortals. That movie is bullshit. Our brains don't work like that. Our brains aren't magical. Our brains are the result of evolution, just like our hands or our noses or our eyes. Our brain and mind are simply how we evolved to make the best decisions to survive and reproduce. They are the result of millions of years of evolution that culminated in you and me. Our brains evolved to make decisions in the savannah, in the wilderness, in the Stone Age, if you will, when life was full of dangers and food was very hard to come by. The problem is that our brains are not evolved to make decisions in our current lives. They're not evolved for the supermarket or for browsing internet or for reacting to the latest Trump news. So let's take a closer look at how our brains actually work. You have a savage monkey inside of you. It decides what you do. And all it wants is to survive and to reproduce. You might think you can control the monkey. You might think, oh, but I am an evolved human being, rational. I can control my base impulses, you might say, or my passions, or my urgings. But if we can learn anything from all the depressing data that we just saw, is that we collectively as humans can't control our monkeys. And our monkeys do what they want. Your monkey will choose to eat the cookie now. It doesn't care that it will make you fat and miserable in a few years. It wants the cookie because it means survival. The monkey is impulsive, the monkey is emotional, and the monkey is unconscious. However, you are not just your monkey. Besides the monkey, there is the conscious part of you. What you call me or I when you talk, that is the conscious part, the free will. But let's call him the professor, because it is the part of you that tries to reason its way through life and deduct what is the best course in the long term through deliberate analytical analysis. The professor is very smart. Unfortunately, he's quite weak and he sleeps most of the time. So he tries to order the monkey around. He tries to tell the monkey, oh, don't eat the cookie now because it will be bad for you later. And it might work once, but in the long term, it never actually succeeds. Because the professor can only win one battle and the monkey will win the other 999. Because the professor, the conscious part of you, takes a lot of resources. It's very hard to access. So most of the time the monkey does what it wants. Have the professor order the monkey to change. We use what we call willpower. This cannot work because, as I said, the professor is weak. So then we think we have low willpower and we give up. The way to actually change is to not try to force the monkey to change, but rather to use the logical and deductive reasoning of the professor to teach the monkey to change. So the answer to the question, how do you make better decisions, is that you don't. You can't. It's useless. However, you can teach your monkey to make better decisions. And these are the 7 steps to train your monkey to change a behavior. So what does the monkey want? It's pretty simple actually. It always boils down to survival and reproduction. Unfortunately, due to our complex society, these 2 basic needs are buried in other layers and layers of superficial needs and desires. So when you say that maybe you want to do something, that's not actually your fundamental need. That is just what you want to do at that moment in order to get to a fundamental need that boils down to survival or reproduction. And the way that the monkey goes about assuring survival and reproduction is by having a model of the world. This model allows you to run simulations of all of your actions to see which are better suited to lead to survival and reproduction. Now, this model is not meant to be perfectly accurate or comprehensive. This model is meant to assure survival. And to assure survival, it has wound up having distortions, oversimplifications, and oftentimes errors. It is just wrong often, but it works, or it worked actually in the past, to ensure survival. So, to understand what the monkey wants, we need not to understand its actual need, but rather to understand how its model makes it think that this behavior helps it accomplish survival or reproduction. For example, maybe like other people, you sometimes eat ice cream at night. You might think that this is because you have a sweet tooth, or because you are just weak-willed and cannot help it. But in truth, ice cream is food. And it's not only food, it is high energy food due to the sugar content. So for the monkey, ice cream means survival. The monkey has evolved in a period when food was scarce. It was very, very, very hard to find food. So the monkey has evolved a model of the world in which is it always good to eat if it can. So the monkey pounces on the occasion to eat high energy foods like ice cream. The fit between reality and your model is also not thorough or comprehensive, because the monkey does not evaluate situations with deliberate logical steps. It uses a quicker, simplified model. It uses pattern recognition. So if you're in a situation, it looks at all the situations that you are in the past and tries to see if the current situation fits any of the situations from the past. If it fits, it selects to do the behavior that you did in the past. Even if you might think that consciously that behavior was not advantageous for you, the monkey's model of the world always favors it. Because in the monkey's world, anything that you do that doesn't get you killed is a good thing. So the monkey is programmed that if it can find a situation in the past, it will always do the behavior from that situation because it thinks it means survival. And then, the more it repeats that behavior in that situation, the stronger the impulse to choose it. Because if it did it 100 times and survived each time, then it is even more certain it will mean survival. Maybe you eat ice cream at night after a run. Running is good. It's quite well proven to be beneficial for you. However, for the monkey, that run is the trigger to eat ice cream. Because you come home from the run, and the monkey fits that situation with every other situation when we came home at night after a run and ate ice cream. So its first impulse is to do what it did in the past, namely eat ice cream. And if you do it today, then the next time the monkey will be even more convinced it should eat ice cream to survive. So what do we do with this? The monkey has a model of the world that is oversimplified and leads to bad conclusions, and then it uses pattern recognition to do the bad behaviors from the past. So how can we change this? Well, it's quite simple. You have to interrupt the monkey's automated choice. You have to break the pattern by changing the situation so that the monkey realizes, oh, it's not the same situation from the past, and then all of its motivation to do the same behavior reduces. Or you can just eliminate the trigger itself so that it doesn't recognize the situation. When you eat ice cream at night, you can change that by, ironically, not running at night anymore. So in the evening, the monkey is not faced with the same situation, and it doesn't have the same reflex to go eat ice cream. You can still run, you can just do it in the morning or on the weekends. You can change the ease of behavior. So the monkey's pattern is you come from the run, you get change, you get ice cream from the fridge, and you eat it. If you can interrupt this flow, then the monkey will be less prone to eat ice cream. So for example, the day before, when you're in the supermarket, just don't buy ice cream. Then at night, when you come home, the monkey will want to open the fridge and get ice cream, but there will not be any ice cream in the fridge. The monkey then doesn't really want to make the effort to go to the supermarket and buy ice cream. It doesn't have the motivation to think that is advantageous for you. So it will let go of the desire to eat ice cream. It's about making the situation in the reality not fit the past, the situation in the model. Sometimes it might not be feasible to change the situation, or even if it is feasible, it cannot really work for long-term change. So we have to work on the other side. We have to work on the model itself. And to change the model, we actually have a very, very strong weapon. Namely the professor. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, we did not evolve consciousness just for the sake of evolving consciousness, or even to be able to produce great art. We evolved consciousness as a way to adapt quicker, because consciousness is basically the story that we tell ourselves about the world, about ourselves and about what happens. And this story that we tell changes what the monkey does, changes the model. So the professor tells the story about the world, and the way to change the monkey's behavior is to tell it a different story. There is a trick to this, namely that you have to use the professor, the conscious, deliberate part, but tell a story that is persuasive and convincing to the simplified model of the monkey. So you need to think of a story that makes sense for the monkey, to think of the need that the monkey gets and how to craft a different story of events that makes the monkey take a different decision. So, for example, going back to the ice cream, the monkey only cares about immediate payoffs. The future does not exist. So if you try to tell it a story about ice cream that says that eating ice cream now will make you fat and unhappy in the future, monkey won't care, it will just eat the ice cream because there is no future for it. However, if you show the monkey maybe a picture of you fat and tell it the story that's what happens when you eat ice cream, then you bring that future, that abstract future that doesn't matter, into the monkey's present. And that just might change the monkey's model if you do it often enough, and it will start avoiding ice cream to avoid that future, because being fat means less survival, less reproduction for the monkey. Your monkey is basically a 5-year-old. It cannot stand still for 3 seconds. So, this makes it really hard to eliminate a behavior. Like any 5-year-old, it's impossible to make them not do something. The same with your monkey. Due to survival evolution, the monkey is prone to action versus inaction. It just hates not doing something. So this makes it really hard to just eliminate a bad behavior. What you need to do is replace the bad behavior with an advantageous behavior. And for this we change the context, we change the story, and we need to make sure that the new behavior fulfills the need of the old behavior in a different way. So our new story and context must provide an immediate gratification to the monkey for it to incorporate it, to see it as useful. Because most bad behaviors provide immediate gratification. Facebook, smoking, eating, doing what the boss tells you without thinking about it. So it would be really hard to just not do that thing. But if you do something else instead of the bad behavior and you get a small pleasure at that moment, then the monkey thinks, oh, this is good, this also provides survival, maybe I'll do it again next time. For ice cream, despite changing the story and the context, in the long term, it would be difficult for most people to just stop eating ice cream at night. However, it would become much easier if each time you didn't eat ice cream, you gave yourself a different reward at that moment. So, for example, you could just do a small victory dance, or you could record in a notebook or in your mobile phone that you didn't need ice cream. Research shows that quantifying these small wins help cement the new behavior, because it becomes even more powerful for the monkey that you did this in the past and it had a good outcome. So this means in the future, this new behavior becomes more credible for the monkey than the past behavior. Great that I didn't eat ice cream, and that tastes better than ice cream. Repeat, repeat, repeat. So, the monkey is really stubborn. It really doesn't like change, which again is an evolutionary adaptation, because in the wilderness, if something works, you don't want to risk breaking it, because any mistake means death, basically. Now, in the world that we live in, risks are much less drastic. Most of anything we attempt will not result in death, and yet the monkey thinks it does. So it's really conservative. That is why any change that you do, you have to repeat over and over and over, so that in time it can override the bad behavior. So it takes a while to change it, but it can be changed. So sometimes the monkey will just ignore your efforts. Sometimes the monkey will eat ice cream at night despite not buying it, despite not running, despite everything that you do. It's not so bad. It happened once. You don't have to feel weak or that it's your fault, because it isn't. The monkey ate it, not you. It's actually proof that you are on the right track, and that you have just a little bit more to go until the monkey is convinced of the new behavior. And now for the good news! All of these characteristics of the monkey work against you when you try to change bad habits, but at the same time they make the monkey really adept at keeping good habits. So once a good habit sticks, the monkey will do it on its own. That's why people like Tim Ferriss refer to the power of rituals and routines. Once it becomes a habit, the professor can sleep, he can take the day off, because the monkey will do it again and again on its own. If you teach the monkey not to eat ice cream at night, from one point it will just not eat ice cream at night. Even if you think maybe I could eat an ice cream, the monkey will not want to. It learned that it's good not to eat ice cream, so it doesn't want to change that back. First of all is you need a lot of patience with the monkey. There's a lot of repetition and there's a lot of effort in making the story and the reward relevant to the monkey. So there's this big effort in the beginning, but then there is also a very big payoff there. If you make it work, the good habit will stick on it. Another thing is that we often have a conscious image of ourselves that is maybe too good to be true. Maybe we like to think of ourselves better than we are. And if you really understand yourself, if you really want to understand what your monkey wants and how it sees the world, you might not be very happy with everything you find out. You might find out that you have certain desires of certain convictions that you are not proud of. That's okay. The monkey is something we cannot control. The monkey is something that we can teach, but only if we have the courage to really understand it, really look at it. That's from the inside. But from the outside, I think it's more important. Because for about 10,000 years in the western part of the world, we have lived in what we call the civilized society. And the civilized society is characterized by organizations, institutions, people, entities that thrive, that their very survival depends on convincing your monkey to do certain things, on convincing your monkey to desire certain things. For example, ice cream producers exist because they can convince your monkey that it should eat ice cream at night to survive. The same for Facebook, the same for Coca-Cola, the same for a million other companies and institutions. So this makes it even more important to understand how your monkey behaves and what it wants. If you don't understand your monkey, if you don't train it to do what you want, then these other organizations will profit and your monkey will do what others want without your consent. What is avant-garde savage? Well, if you don't take control of your monkey, others will. And through your monkey, they will control you. Avant-garde savage is my attempt at freedom, at becoming free from this control. So at Avant-garde Savage, we explore the monkey and how you can change. Join me at Avant-garde Savage so we understand our monkeys together and we learn how to train them so we can have a happy, healthy, meaningful life. And thank you for subscribing. You have subscribed, right? If not, this is your chance. Click the small button that says subscribe. Real easy. It's the first step to change, you know. Click it. Click it now. You can do it. sure you can. The monkey doesn't want you to click it, but you should really click it. Thank you.